"She's not who you think she is." The words fell from the boy's lips like a stone into still water, breaking the hush of the wedding chapel in an instant. The music stopped mid-note. Heads turned, guests froze in confusion. At the front of the aisle, standing in his tiny white tuxedo, was Elijah. Just 8 years old, his hands shaking, his cheeks streaked with tears. His voice trembled, but his eyes were steady as he looked up at his father, who stood stunned beside the altar. Marcus, the groom, couldn't move. His heart thudded in his chest as he stared at his son. Elijah's voice cracked again, softer but urgent, pleading with him in front of everyone. He told his father not to marry her, that something was wrong, that she wasn't the woman they thought she was. The bride, Vanessa, stood just a few feet away, bouquet clutched tight, confusion flickering across her face before melting into a nervous smile. "He's just scared," she said to the room, voice airy and forced. "Kids say the craziest things under pressure, right?" But Elijah didn't look confused. He didn't look scared of attention. He looked scared of her. And what came next made the entire chapel hold its breath. Elijah, barely able to speak, confessed that Vanessa had locked him in a closet. Twice. When Marcus wasn't home. He said she told him not to tell anyone or his dad wouldn't love him anymore. Said she told him if he ruined the wedding, it would be his fault when they had no family. Whispers rippled through the crowd, growing louder with each passing second. The pastor looked from the child to the bride, unsure whether to continue. Marcus dropped to one knee in front of his son, his world tilting in real time. He asked Elijah if it was true, and the boy nodded, tears still falling. Vanessa's smile faltered. She stepped forward, trying to brush it all off, claiming it was a game, a misunderstanding. But Marcus's eyes locked on hers, and what he saw there wasn't confusion. It was fear. Not for the boy, but for herself. That was the moment everything changed. Without another word, Marcus pulled out his phone. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply dialed. Calmly, he told the 911 operator that there was a child safety concern at St. James Chapel and that officers were needed immediately. The bride's face drained of color. The guests looked on in shock as the wedding unraveled before their eyes. The little boy was pulled aside gently by one of Marcus's cousins, comforting him as more details spilled out. The things he had endured. The things she had threatened him with. The bruises he had tried to hide. The moments Marcus had missed, thinking his son was just struggling to adjust. He had called it growing pains, but it wasn't that. It was fear, and silence, and a child who didn't know how to speak, until now. When the officers arrived, the guests stepped aside. Vanessa's voice cracked as she tried to explain, but her charm dissolved the moment Elijah recounted what happened in front of them all. Every detail, every locked door, every threat lined up with a child who had been trying so hard to be strong. And when he said, "I even called her mom once to make her happy, but she still got mad," Marcus's face crumbled. In that moment, the wedding didn't just end. It imploded. Vanessa was escorted out in handcuffs, not as a bride, but as a suspect. The chapel that had been filled with flowers, candles, and violins now echoed with the sound of heartbreak and quiet tears. No one knew what to say. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. She had fooled everyone. Everyone except the boy. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of his bed in the same tuxedo he had put on hours earlier, now wrinkled and heavy with regret. Elijah curled beside him, wrapped in a blanket. They didn't speak at first. The fire crackled. The silence was thick. Then Marcus turned to his son and whispered an apology, not just for almost marrying the wrong person, but for not noticing sooner, for brushing off the signs, for not asking more questions when Elijah went quiet. Elijah leaned against his father, still small, still brave, and simply said, "You believed me when it mattered." Because sometimes the most important vows aren't spoken at an altar. They're made in quiet moments, between a father and son, a promise to protect, to listen, to believe. Elijah didn't just stop a wedding. He saved his family, he saved his father's future, and he did it with nothing more than truth. Before we end this story, let us know in the comment where in the world you are watching from. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and drop your thoughts below.